What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Round 5 Commentary with your boy Sparky. I'm here with my boy Victor. Say hi, Victor.
Hi, Victor.
Um, we have two very different decks today. It's going to be Energy and Energy. How do you feel, Vic?
Haven't been this excited since I got to watch the Taylor Swift Eras movie tour. So thrilling, riveting.
Hey, I heard it was pretty good.
Oh, it's fantastic. Unlike what this matchup's probably going to be.
I mean, relatively for the viewers at home, I know it says Jeskai Energy. I do believe Dan's blue cards are 4 consigned to memory in his sideboard. That's about it. So it's pretty much a mirror match, with the exception of having extra shock lands in Dan's deck that he may lose some precious life points over. So we'll see how that goes. Players are all.
You're telling me I can't even get a Mockingbird interaction in this?
I don't think so. As much as I would like it with like the Ranger Captain of Eoses, I mean, it looks like Tom's going down to 5 cards here at least. I like Mockingbird. I think it does a lot of fun things for like what the deck's trying to do, but at the end of the day, I think it's a little too clunky, and as a top deck, it's not a good card.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that if you're gonna be heading to Charlotte, right? Like this is a good conversation for that kind of stuff.
I am heading to Charlotte along with you.
Yes, that is true. This is more for everyone that out there that I was talking to. But with that being said, I don't mind adding blue for Mockingbird. Jeskai Energy percentage wise, still one of the highest percentage decks out there. Mockingbird basically says. Well, what do you have? What else is out now? So if you look at it,
in Portland, Teamer Breach and Energy, all versions were tied for highest percentage.
Okay, so then my statement was still, I didn't say it was the sole deck. I just said it was the top.
Sure.
So if it's tied, it's technically still the top. It's just tied for the top. Semantics aside, Mockingbird does become whatever you want to, and especially in those matchups. Every card is very essential, and to have it enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield on curve for the most part and on mana, it feels like it's not a bad inclusion if you're gonna splash blue. I mean, Consign's a great card, so don't get me wrong. I completely understand wanting to play Consign, but you might as well think about maybe some number of Mockingbirds being whatever you want them to be.
No, I think that's a fine card. Like I said, I just don't know what cards you want to cut. Like looking at any of the main decks, if you go on to Goldfish or whatever, I feel like the main deck is actually pretty tight. I know that there's like some amount of people who are back and forth on the number of Seasoned Pyromancers they want and or the number of Ranger Captain of Eoses they want, along with Ragavan. I think those numbers are a little iffy, whether people want to play the 3rd Thraben Charm or not. I think it's pretty stock that most players are on about 3 Goblin Bombardment and 2 to 3 Static Prison. So it really comes down to like where you want to do this, because obviously like having a 5th Ocelot Pride in your deck or a 5th Guide of Souls, Ragavan, Ajani, not Flage not so much, but I mean it could come in handy in like a lot of the grindy matchups where it's another Seasoned Pyromancer or Ranger Captain of Eos. So at the end of the day, I'm not sold on it because I don't know what card I'd want to cut.
Sure.
But that being said, I mean, and maybe as one off, maybe I cut a land. I don't know.
Yep.
Dan with a blistering fast start here, just absolutely demolishing with an unchecked Ragavan, which that is what happens.
Unchecked Ragavan, I think in Modern's history since the card has been printed, has been one of the most explosive things you can do in the format, just in general.
Yeah, and looking over at Tom, I think he's got like 3 or 4 lands in hand.
He's got a lot. He's got a lot of inaction, and it's very unfortunate because to stare down, just to stare down Guide plus Ragavan is already a lot.
Yeah, and it's like a choice of which 3-drop do you want to put into play. I think the answer is Ranger Captain. And I mean, specifically in this position, if he had a blue land, right, and he had a Mockingbird, he could make a copy of one of these 2 very powerful 1-drops. But I think he's just going to trade in 2
Yeah, I
lands
think
for 2
I think
cards.
here it wouldn't have been great just because you're already behind, and I mean making a copy of Guy would have been great if he could have done it on like turn 2 after he untapped there. Actually, no, because he played the Ajani. So yeah, it's a tough call. I think that sometimes clone effects from behind aren't great. I know you were calling for the Ranger Captain. I liked the Pyromancer play just to kind of see ahead to what your hand's going to shape out to be, because you have to assume that Dan's got some more gas and or some more interaction. So at least if the Pyromancer bites the dust here,
I
in two
mean,
turns it can make some blockers.
he Dan wound up
Oh,
having
never
the
mind.
static prison.
Combat.
That's a great way to not let your opponent make blockers later on.
Yeah, I mean, like Dan happened to have 3 pieces of interaction, so there was not a lot Tom could have done in that spot, regardless which one of the creatures he played. The only reason I went with Ranger Captain is because it like proactively, like without any tricks from Dan, blocks the Ragavan and sticks around.
Would have been crazy there is that Tom discarded 2 lands, and then if there's no Ragavan hit, he would have drawn another Arena Glory, which is wild.
Yeah.
Oh, Tom did not have triple white. Oof.
He has a Galvanic Discharge in hand, so like he can take down this Ragavan, which is kind of nice. So he's not dead. But he is at 4, and he's going to possibly draw some cards here. I don't mind. I think he's pitching, it looks like a Bombardment and a Ranger Captain here to make a few more guys to block with. And I kind of like it. Although if he's making guys, it might make sense to keep the Bombardment.
Well, does Spyro say it's up to 2 cards? You don't have to discard 2, correct?
I think it says discard 2 cards.
Oh, okay, never mind. Because the blockers only will block one thing because everything else flies.
7 in the air.
Not quite what you wanted there, Daniel. Your opponent goes 2-1.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, here comes Flage out of the graveyard.
Gotta make sure your opponent sees it. Let them make the mistake just in case.
No, man, that's fine. Sometimes they're really quick. I mean, Dan, I think, had the good hand coming out of the gate, and we did see Tom mulligan quite a lot in that game. I want to say he was at 5 cards. If not 6 cards, and a bunch of lands in his hand, as we saw. So we go into sideboarding. If these lists are pretty stock, I'd probably say Dan is bringing in some number of possible, like, Wear Tear, Showdown the Scalds, Wrath the Skies that he wants against his opponent. And then maybe like a Lithomantic Barrage, if he's got that. I like the spicy Lithomantic Barrage because it's good against a lot of the blue decks that you're going to see. It's a 1-mana answer for Oculus. It also deals with any of the white creatures Tom may have for 1 mana. Can't be countered. Great spell. On Tom's side, I believe he'll bring in some number of Ghost Vacuums.
Bring in the Stony so you can counter your.
And then I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think the deck is already good against the mirror. Like, as long as you draw like your interactive pieces, like Thraben Charms and Discharges and Prisons and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, play draw. Obviously affecting how you're gonna feel that out. I don't mind the Orange Chance. I think Tom has 1 in his sideboard if I'm looking at it correctly. And for everyone at home, I was unfortunately unable to attend Magic, but what Dan had proposed before the tournament was for anyone going to Charlotte was to practice open deck list, since that is something that isn't typically done. So great idea on Dan there, for everyone's practicing. So these guys are going to play a little heads up in the fact that they're going to know what's coming. So that may have something to do with how Tom chooses how he's going to sideboard here, being on the play, and we'll see how that plays out.
Oh, that's right. The lists are in our Discord channel. Well done, Victor.
Yes, I was doing some research while you were
while I was going off.
Yeah, which the big thing is, like you said, there's 4 consigns in Dan's sideboard: a Ghost Vacuum, 2 Orange Chance, 3 Stony Silence, 1 Surgical, 2 Wear Tears, 2 Wrath of the Skies. So since Dan's on the draw, I like the Surgical, I like Orange Chance, and I like the Ghost Vacuum. I think that's just a helpful card there. Though I think if you're going to bring in Surgical, maybe you don't need to bring in Ghost Vacuum. I guess it just depends on how much Dan thinks that Graveyard plus Flage is a problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm sure
that's
some
fair.
number of wear and tear is probably helpful. I can't see it being bad.
And dumpster.
That's fair. Looking at Tom's sideboard, he has 1 case of the Crimson Pulse, a Chain to the Rocks, 2 Deafening Silence, Ghost Vacuum, Orange Chant, 3 Stony Silence, 2 Wear Tear, 3 White Orchid Phantom, and 1 Wrath of Skies. Based off of what it looked like he was sideboarding in while he was flashing some of his cards, I believe he's bringing in the Ghost Vacuum, the 2 Wear Tear, the Chain to the Rocks, and the case. For the case, for people who don't know, case of the Crimson Pulse. When the case enters the battlefield, discard a card, then draw 2. To solve the case, you have to have no cards in your hand at the beginning of your end step. And once it's solved at the beginning of your upkeep, you discard your hand and draw 2 cards. So it's kind of like a catch-up engine late in the game where you can play it, put some cards in your hand. Then if you empty your hand out, it's almost like a better Howling Mine just for yourself. Because you're going to have 3 cards in your hand at the end, like at the beginning of your draw step.
I gotta keep it PG.
Yeah, so I talked to Tom about this card because he said, he had said, man, I would love to be able to test this card, and after our match, and he showed it to me, and I get what he's trying to do. He's not a fan of Showdown of the Skulls. He feels that the 4 mana is a little bit much, and this acts like another kind of pseudo Showdown plus also a Fable, but also to the fact that it doesn't leave play, so he can continue to do the effect. It'll be interesting to ever get to see. I unfortunately have never seen or talked to Tom since that conversation, so I don't know if he's had the chance
I think
to test it.
It's one of those hard cards to test because as a one-of, the likelihood that you see it in a game is relatively low, especially if it's relatively fast games. Like you might see the mirrors become fast games unless they become slogs. Like if you just get stuck with just creatures and it's who's going to attack first kind of a thing. So I think the data there is a little hard. I think you just might want to up the number you put into your sideboard if you're testing the card out. Maybe make it 3, maybe make it 4. I know it sounds dumb, but you want to see what that card's like in your hand and what you can do with it.
So the best way to do it. Yeah, you have 2 energy.
I will say that I still think Showdown's a little bit better of a card just because I love the idea that the Showdown allows you, because especially if you bring it in the mirror, and maybe the more experienced Boros players out there will chime in the comments, but I'm thinking if you're bringing in these slower matchups and you're bringing it in maybe in the mirror as a mirror buster, I like the fact that the counters can help make your creatures better than your opponent's creatures.
I also, I'm with you in the Showdown of the Skulls camp. Yes, it's 4 mana, but at the point where you play it for 4 mana, you're probably going to get your 5th land drop off of it, right? And 1 to 2 spells. So if you already had dudes in play, that's 3 cards for your 4 mana, which is about what your the One Ring was doing for you. I mean, the One Ring was probably giving you close to 5-6 cards. But the thing that does the best approximation right now is Showdown of the Skulls. We don't have anything else as good as the One Ring. I don't think we want anything like that. We know that was a problem in the format at that point, so it's probably for the best.
And you got to remember, Showdown is top 4, so and it's until your next. Until the end of your next turn. So
the idea is
2 lands plus 2 spells is because you're playing it on turn.
Let's assume you're casting it on curve for 4. It's not that great. Casting it on 5 is actually really good. You want it on turns 5 through 8 are when you want to see that card, but you also need to have the mana for it. So unless you're kind of already flooded hitting for 4 mana. I mean, 4 mana is where the deck wants to be at. You want to be able to double, triple spell and also buy back your Flage from the yard. So it does put you in a not really an odd spot, but it puts you in a hard spot sometimes.
To my 16, so go.
But that's when you want to see that card. And I mean, again, Showdown is also normally a 1 of or 2 of in the sideboard. Corner case scenarios.
Attack is 0, 2 energy.
Oof.
Dear Lord, did that seem backbreaking?
And just for everyone at home, Tom is tapped out, so there wouldn't have been any responses available. Okay, he represented it. That was something else, and Tom is now 1 card in hand. It's only a land. I couldn't tell which
I
land,
think there's
but
2 cards in his hand at the moment.
he had 2. He played land for turn. He's down to 1.
Oh, it's
And
an
I
arena.
believe it's an arena. Yep.
Hey kids, you want to know how to win games? Don't get flooded.
That is helpful. That Wrath was wild though. That was exactly something that just that's almost too much value.
These are definitely things you need to pay attention to, especially in an open deckless tournament. Like when you know your opponent could have Wrath Guys, you don't want to overextend into it. I think that's why I would probably board out the Static Prisons in the matchup. But again,
And just go for the hard removal.
Go for the hard removal. Make sure your opponent's stuff stays off the board. Because like if he didn't have like if there was a Galvanic Discharge for the Pride at this point, Dan wouldn't be able to rebuild from here. He would just like the boards would be like him playing his Wrath spell ruins his board too. So it's different when you have a deck like the Black-White Blink deck that has 5 drops that aren't dying to the Wrath of Skies, or even 4 drops to an extent.
Put that blade in the graveyard. Fuck me up.
I would have been there already.
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned the Blink deck. I have a TCG player package here that I'm pretty sure has the cards I need for the rest of that deck.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to play it and get some reps with it and give me some info of what you think, because I think that might be the deck for Charlotte for me. There's been a lot of play back and forth with that deck specifically that I've been really enjoying. It definitely feels like the mid-range deck of the format that has game against everything. So maybe Black-White, quote-unquote, as they say, sewers, can save us from this energy grinding meta.
You know what could save us? A fair and strong ban and restricted announcement from Wizards. Oh, wait. Anyway.
Give us back Fury and Grief, you cowards.
Okay, you can have 1, and you can only have Fury.
I'll take it. Can I also get Beanstalk?
Yeah.
You can't. Okay, you can have Beanstalk, but you can't have the Elementals. Then
we're gonna put this conversation on pause. Dan just played his 2-card Wombo combo of Bombardment into a Johnny.
Name a stronger combo in Modern. I'll wait.
Splinter Twin.
Yeah,
it wins the game on the spot. This wins the game over the course of a few turns.
Well, I think that the world decided that apparently Splinter Twin is finally no longer good, and glad that it got its week of kind of highlight. But unfortunately, that is no longer a thing. So
I appreciate Dan for using our tokens. He's a good guy.
Dan's is a big supporter. And unfortunately, Tom had seen enough. Yeah. Can't say I blame him there. That the flooding is always brutal.
Dan's draws and just opening hands seemed really, really good in this matchup. I don't want to say that it was the color splash that got him there. I mean, this is kind of just what happens when you draw it up like that. Your deck either gives it to you or doesn't give it to you. But them's the breaks. Hopefully, we see BNR announcement after we come back from Charlotte. That's what I'm looking forward to. But as of right now, have fun in the format while you can. Thank you for joining us as always. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below. You can support us at our Bonfire store or using your Mana Traders account using code OCHM. Say goodbye, Victor.
Goodbye, Victor.